and so much this and so much that. So I'm competing with myself, which is never a good thing. And it's to say, get in, get involved, and don't worry about the cumbersome words in sustainability. I say also find a language that suits you and your team.
I just think it's such a strong word. And I think your explanation there tells us why it's a strong word, because you attach it to every important relationship in your life.
My first ecosystem is me and how I manage that. And that's a work in progress. Then there's my near ecosystem, what's around me.
Welcome back to The Change Show. This is Simon Phillips and my very special guest today, Matt Hocking. Matt, great to see you.
Hey, really good to see you, Simon, and not see everybody who's listening to you, but hello out there.
Fantastic. Now, Matt, you and I have known each other quite a few years. I think it was when I was on my latest trip, because I've been back and forth to Devon and Cornwall quite a few times, but we were both at the Eden Project. That's when I think I met you years ago.
It was 2018.
Wow, is it that far back? Wow.
It couldn't be. Is it 2018? It was when Finisterre announced they were a B Corp. They had just certified, and it was their first announcement. And Tom Kay was there. You were on the stage. Well, we were all on the stage. And the reason I remember that is because 3 years before that, B Corp came to the UK, and it's just 10 years. B Corporation UK is celebrating 10 years of the B Corp movement in the UK this month. And we're just coming up to the 10 years since we got the first certification.
Brilliant.
So first certificated B Corp in Cornwall. So yeah,
fantastic. Well, that's a great place to start, Matt. So tell us a little bit more about yourself for those who maybe haven't met you before. What have you been up to? I mean, I know you can't cover everything you've been up to, but give us an insight.
Yeah, I think I would hurt people's minds with the speed I move and the multi-dimensional world I live in. So my name's Matt Hocking. As Simon said, we've known each other a long time now. And we've got our own 10 years coming up in a couple of years' time, actually. We'll get you back on stage at Eden. I'm a graphic designer, but I specialise since 2000 in planet-centred design. So rather than human-centred, we look at all life, and we'll create the usual things a designer would do: websites, logos, brands, exhibitions, displays, you name it. But we always look at it in a planet-centered way, and what its impact will be, is it even needed, and lots of bits in between. What materials to use, if it's a website or a computer, what the right computer would be, like a refurb in this case, and what the right energy to power that computer would be, the best we can. So before that, I designed for profit without thought of what I was creating, and then had a sort of a weird epiphany, but at the age of 29, going, God, is this the way life is going to go? Father of two wonderful girls. My second and third children, because my business Leap.eco is my first child and the hardest one to be letting go. So after 21 years, I'm just stepping aside from that. So this is probably the first time I'm announcing that online. We did announce it at Blue Earth Summit a couple of weeks ago to 150 people. So father, graphic designer. I live in Cornwall. I love Cornwall. I would say the spirit of Cornwall is my muse for what I do. And before that, I worked for a variety of companies, for-profit companies, and then became head of graphics at Eden Project when I was 30, a few years there, and then set up my practice. So everything's gone in a whirlwind. A few other things I got, but I won't mention those right now.
Brilliant. So you mentioned there was a bit of an epiphany moment, but tell us a little bit more about that, this shift into a more of an environmental action perspective, if you like.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for asking that question, because I think it's at the heart of all of it. And in its simplest terms, Simon, it's that purpose moment, although I never really looked at the word purpose or thought about it. At the time, as I said, I've been designing since 1993. It was now like just before 2000. I was, I don't have a huge benchmark on the money front, but my prerequisite to how I live, work and play is to be by the sea. So the city of London and other cities wouldn't really have much appeal to me if the sea wasn't close by. But I managed to have a good living and have a good life, creating local to global for-profit companies, mainly in telecoms, a bit of Sky, a little bit of Lego freelance and things. But at 29, as weird as it may sound, I was like, is this the routine now? Is this life that I, as a creative, and I'm not even trained. I'm one of the 50% in the UK that is a non-trained graphic designer. I am trained in art though, and an illustration course. But yeah, it just felt like, is this it? And it might sound, even at 29, would that be the thing people were thinking of? So for me, it was like I couldn't tell what the disconnect or what I was trying to connect to.
Yeah.
I'm 54 in a couple of weeks' time, so nearly half a lifetime since. But I wasn't looking for something, but I didn't like that I was able to be paid money and say random things to clients, and they would go, "Yeah, sounds brilliant. Let's make it happen." And
Now,
I would
hold on
probably
there,
say,
Matt. You're attacking my whole career now. No, go on. Sorry.
but also that awareness that how powerful design is. We hear these stats: 80% of environmental impact is decided at the design stage. 70% of the world's paper passes through the hands of creators in one shape or form, and including loo roll. And also that 10% of the world's energy now, it wasn't then, is used by the internet and the 13 billion websites that are up there, let alone AI and everything.
Yeah.
So I was on this space without knowing what I was going to do next. I was feeling a bit cocky for redundancy, so I was able to walk in and out. I got very resilient at redundancies of all different sizes of businesses. And then my dad called and said, "Oh, there's a job at Eden Project. It's 3 miles from where we live in Cornwall, at Penwithwick. You used to play in the pit when you were a kid, and sneak in when you shouldn't have been." And Dad would be told, and then I would get told off. And really, from there, Simon, it was like, all right, I'll give it a go. I'd heard a few things about Tim Smith, but I didn't do any research. Went for the job. I'd just come back, actually, from traveling in China and Tibet, cycling over there, kind of a weird odyssey that also extra shaped my resolve to do something more meaningful, but still not knowing what it was.
Yeah.
And so then went for an interview. I looked completely out of place when I went there and didn't know anything about the Eden Project other than it was in Cornwall. And I got the job. They said, "What's a designer like you doing here? You look very corporate." And I said, "Well, imagine my corporate world meeting your environmental world. What might we create together?" They said, "Well, cheers, thanks, for that." I thought, nothing of it. I felt a little bit embarrassed. I should have done my research. I went about 20 paces out the porter cabin. It was in the early days of Eden. Yeah. And I got a phone call saying the job's yours. Then I found out it was a 50% pay cut. And then I looked down over the top of the pit and down in the pit. And I don't know if you've ever done that, Simon, where you've been up high and looked down. Yeah. And then I saw my childhood love of space and nature all in one place. So I've always loved space and Star Wars and Space 1999, Blake Seven. I've also always loved Dave Bellaby, David Attenborough, and all the other nature things that were around those times, a bit of Tarzan. And suddenly it's like, wow, space and nature in my home patch. If I turn this down, I am going to forever spend the rest of my life regretting it. So, yeah, that was it, really. And then, a couple of weeks later, I started there. I thought they would teach me about how to be a green designer, but they were working out how to keep the place open, going with thousands of people coming. So yeah, really, it was there's something inside, and I guess looking at it now, it's that gut and heart feeling that something wasn't right, that something wasn't aligned. I could look back now and go, that's my values in action. Yeah. That's my childhood. So I think that's enough of me talking there, but I think you get the gist.
Absolutely. And I think what you've highlighted there is that point about when you look back, you can see how all the dots join, can't you?
Yes.
When you're in the middle of it, it's like, where's the next dot, please?
Yeah, or not even too worried about the dot, or not thinking this is some big magic step or anything. It was just bits and pieces that all lined up, and knowing that I couldn't not do this way. And then once I was there, then like you said, the dot to dot, every experience, everything I'd done, those 4 redundancies, the not finishing a 4-year art college course, my natural, being a grafter and things like that all came to light. So one redundancy, I ended up working on a printing press. So when I had to work on the whole paper, what papers to use for Eden Project, and the hundreds of thousands of pieces of paper needed, I was able to talk head to head with the printers, going, no, you can't do it environmentally. You can't do. Oh, it's going to be 4 times the price. I said, actually, we could do this, and we can multiply things up to bring the cost down, and we could use soy-based inks. Oh, that's going to be extra washes and stuff. Well, we are Eden Project. We have 15,000 visitors in peak summer and stuff like that. Well, a couple of years later. And so it was all those things came together. And the last thing that really resonated for me, and I will always say the same, is somehow, for the first time in my life, environment and knowledge surrounding it and responsibility became sticky. Everything else in my life has never really stuck to me and has just drifted by me. And, I know enough to do the things I did for the clients I worked for, but it never excited me. But at Eden, everything excited me, working from, whether it's working on the car parks to water drainage and, to telling the story through design.
Yeah.
To, one of my favorite projects was working with Future Harvest and the Peruvian Potato Foundation, which for me was far more exciting than working with Lego, bizarrely.
Fantastic. And a great grounding, of course, when you then moved on later to be thinking about B Corp, because that is all about the resources around you and getting creative about how you do things, isn't it?
Yeah, and those 5 pillars of that sort of define B Corp and the business impact assessment, which is going through a massive change as new standards are about to come out. But yeah, with B Corp, it was actually the hardest thing for Leap and myself when I founded the business in 2004. After 3 years at Eden, was the explanation of what is sustainable design.
Yeah.
So we called Leap Sustainable Media then. What a mouthful that was, and what an unattractive design for a designer. But it said what it did on the tin. And for those that could understand it, they got it. And very quickly we got a real diverse and interesting load of clients. Actually, when I stepped away from Eden to set Leap up, because I'd fallen in love with a lady there and she was moving to Wiltshire, so it's time for me to go. My heart was taken in a different place, and that's why Leap was about a leap of faith. However, a lot of people said, you can't just design for the planet, you can't just create environmentally. And I was like, oh, I don't know. But I know now, being at Eden and watching other design agencies come into Eden and go green for the client, but when I look at their folios and their other clients, they're not telling those clients how to be green. So I said, what if I created, and I had no ambition to be more than a freelancer in his bedroom at the time, just Leap rather than Matt Hocking as the business name. And but yeah, I always say it's like a bat signal. Once you know what Batman's signal in the air is, you know to follow the signal. And the signal for those, I'm a comic book fan, makes you feel safe, and it makes you know that there's somebody out there that can do something that you need. And that's what Leap really was. And like I said, very quickly we went from zero and me being unknown to it getting in the papers about this green eco designing family with my partner Claire at the time, and our firstborn Esme, who's 20 now, and things like that. And it just scaled. So within 2 years I had to employ, and then that's started to get complicated.
Thankfully, in many respects, there's a lot of organizations now investigating sustainability and trying to work it out and figure out how they can get things set up in the right way. So from your perspective, because I know you've been involved in B Corp at many levels, what's the one thing companies get wrong when they start their sustainability journey, do you think?
I would say it's overthinking it.
Right.
Rather than just, clarity comes from action, doesn't it? So, and because I started Leap from the ground up with the environment, with the right pixels, everything was right from the start. Because there was this natural sticky DNA around me, it was easy for us. And when we were the first design agency in Europe to become a certified B Corp in January 2016, and we scored 103 without trying, because we had the data, we had been measuring, because it was all part of the joy of it. But I still overthought everything, Simon. So I went into the BIA, which is, trust me, what the BIA looks like now, the business impact assessment, is really smooth and sexy and user-friendly. What I had was a glorified Excel spreadsheet, probably why I'm so rubbish with Excel spreadsheets now, because it burnt a hole in my brain. And for me, I still overthought the whole thing. I wanted it to be perfect. And as we know, there is no perfect. And just trying and not worrying about the scores. It's sort of like Strava in a way. I used to run a lot and ran marathons. And then in lockdown, I didn't run much. And now I won't run because I'm worried about looking at all my past runs and getting the data coming up and going, oh, you're so much slower and so much this and so much that. So I'm competing with myself, which is never a good thing. Mm-hmm. And it's just say, get in, get involved, and don't worry about the cumbersome words in sustainability. I say also find a language that suits you and your team. Mm-hmm. It's really important. Language really matters, and even the etymology of some of these words. If we go back, and I can never remember the Greek version, but I do a lot of talk about managing our home, which I think you and I have talked about this potentially before, and maybe you can help me here because I'm going to get it wrong. Mm-hmm. But the original word for economy, I think, is two words in Greek, eiko and nemon or something like that, and it just means to manage our household. So reality is my first ecosystem is me and how I manage that. And that's a work in progress. Then there's my near ecosystem, what's around me. Then there's my business, around these community. And then there's my business within that ecosystem. And all of it is just about the economy of self, the economy of hyperlocalism, the economy of the planet. But actually, if we go back to the origin of the word economy, it's manage our home. And in this case, manage our home planet, as well as managing our home self. And for me, I think B Corp, and for many others, the 10 or 15,000 users and businesses that are using it all the time, 10,000 certified, and all those that use it as the free framework, it helps us manage the business better. And in my case, as a small business getting a little bit larger without really any business knowledge and training and that whole accidental side of things, it was a really good wayfinder and map to dive deeper into the landscape. For me, is like the people side, the HR and what's best practice. And I'm sure you've worked with many B Corps and you've played with the BIA yourself and things like that. And so you can. And for my team, it meant if I'm out and about, they still got this touch point to go, oh, actually, when we're procuring for this client and this paper, this is what we should be doing.
Yeah, it all makes sense. And you've mentioned home, and a lot of people might assume, if you like, that to have the level of influence that you're having, not just in the UK, but around the world, that you're going to need to be in the heart of the city of London, but that's not the case, Matt. So how has your place that you like to call home, if you like, how's that influenced and shaped your work?
It's a really good question, and it's funny whenever I hear words city, and even for us as a small Cornish business, they've been trading for 21 years. That we have worked all over the world and just as much locally. We worked in the Sinai Desert with the Jebeliah tribe. The team have just finished work in the UK and the US with Project Drawdown on the new Shifts Happen platform. Yeah, we've had stuff at various COPs. We've worked on projects in New Zealand with Blue Green Futures on Personhood for Wales with the Maoris and stuff. So, and all the brilliant stuff to do locally. I think the sense of place is in my upbringing of my parents. I'd say thank you to them anyway, but it's to their influence by not influencing me that has allowed my appreciation of nature, letting me be out in nature and relatively gone like we used to do for the whole day without a mobile phone, being in the fields, being near the sea, coming home covered in ticks or scratches from the beach. And I don't know if that's why the planet and the environment are so important to me or so naturally. I'm also neurodiverse. They say neurodiverse individuals, 25% more empathy with the planet and nature, especially within females and female leaders. And we've obviously got the masculine and feminine with all of us, to energy-wise, to different levels. But yeah, it was that really strange thing. It was like, I just want to be by the sea and work. and again, the work just arrived, and the hardest thing actually when we became a B Corp was everything happened in London. So suddenly I'm up there all the time on the train. So it's a lovely 5 hours moving office, and up past Dawlish Warren and places like that, so by the sea. But I was pulled away a lot, and but since everything changed with COVID and pandemic, more people now come and they're readily up for working wherever you are, as long as you've got the skills and that. That's why I talk about, being able to do global projects from a hyperlocal space that work both for that hyperlocalism and the globalism, for planetary boundaries and sort of that triple bottom line. But yeah, I don't really know, but I was stubbornly fixated on being by the sea. And I've even got a dream at some point when the kids, my partner's kids are older, is just to head over to Sri Lanka and a few other places for a while. And, whichever ways they get a train to the coast of Portugal from here, and just rock up for 4 weeks and work and play in the sea.
Oh, I like the sound of that. You mentioned earlier, Matt, about that the way to succeed is to get into action.
Yeah.
And I've certainly noticed that with my clients, the ones who sit around and pontificate for years, they're probably still there. The ones who actually get and try and tweak is my favorite phrase. You've managed to build a whole community of action takers, with Goodfest. How do you actually, is that 5 years now, Goodfest?
It's a fallow year this year, so this is the 7th year.
Wow.
And it's in fallow. Yeah. So just to give it a little bit of regeneration and copy bigger places like Glastonbury and things. So
how do you build a community that is up for it and ready to do something?
That's a really good question. You might be able to tell me, because I do wonder sometimes, more than sometimes, Simon. I am an outsider in reality. There's a poster just above the laptop sitting in front of me. The things that made you weird as a kid make you great today, from an artist I like called James Victory. And that's there to remind me, but it's also for my girls as well, as they were growing up. That individualism, the, Oscar Wilde's everyone, be yourself because everyone else is taken. I've always been the awkward, my favourite thing to talk about is that awkward lone nut dancing on the hill. And the one I'm talking about, and that's the first follower. So I was nothing other than this kind of, guy thinking there was a different way to design, and then people started following, and so it's only through them following me and commissioning me that I became something. And then in 2017 and 2018, I got asked to talk to a bunch of individuals that were looking at setting up a new event, sort of a creative network, and get more people from outside Cornwall to come and experience Cornwall and activate their creative senses in the land, and then to also get individuals from within Cornwall to meet those and kind of cross-pollinate and network, for want of better. I was asked to talk about B Corp. After I talked about what B Corp was, they said, "Oh, do you want to join?" And this was at the time an event called Goodfest, which is what's on fallow at the moment, so Goodfest Cornwall. And I said, "Yeah, I'd join, but as a B Corp, I feel I can't have any sort of single-use plastic. We're going to have to look at, sustainability and how people get there, and we can give a guide if people do still want to use other forms of transport. They can. I fly sometimes, but I really consider why. And through that, and bringing in all our clients and friends with Laura Giles and Ben Akers and a few others who were the original co-founders, we created something without there being anything before. We had no show reel to sell the 150 tickets, and however things happened, we are definitely good at convening. Some people call me a super connector, because of being an early B Corp, because of just loving the work I do and just loving people and what they do. And I don't like being a leader. I'm an awkward creative. I'm an introvert, extrovert. But somehow we've convened 1,000 people over 6 years there. And then I'm on the Council of Wisdom for Blue Earth Summit. I do another thing called Uncomfortable Conversations. What are the conversations we need to lean into that give us discomfort rather than pass them by? So they're really alternate conversations. But for some reason, people are just letting me do all these things, and I do it with care. I would never do anything that I didn't believe in, and I would never do anything that did harm intentionally. And so, again, that stickiness, that randomness. And I don't like being at the front and being on a microphone and things, but all these things have happened. And what I've learned is just to go with it.
Yeah.
You might have some really brilliant things from insights from this. I mean, I was thinking about some of your, questions that bridge the gap and like what might get in your way. Well, I don't tend to think about that. I just get going and get doing, and before you know it, it's snowballing, and then all you've got to do is actually kind of be discerning and go, hey, hold on a minute, let's regroup. One thing I will say is the way I and others around me and the founders of Goodfest have happened is you hear minimum viable product, but Elite, we call it minimum lovable, and it is all about love. So it took me a long time to realize that as well. 2024 I realized that I always used to say the antidote to despair is action, not my line, as you know. And so I don't get despair, I don't get eco-anxiety because I'm always in action. But I realised over the last couple of years, thanks to my love, my partner, Georgie, and my fiance, actually, who I met 6 years ago, that the antidote is my love in action. And I think when you put love into something, and this might sound a little bit out there, when we love our world, we love our community, we love our children, we love our friends, that love radiates and that shines. Absolutely. And we might not see it, but we feel it.
Yeah.
And that connectivity, without knowing it, there's something electrical, something charged that's connecting. And then the connections, when other people come together, they don't know what it is, but they make these events. It's not us. We just say the event is here. I'm a human signpost that's like, hey, come here. I can't tell you what's going to happen, but with the right energy and the right openness, you'll have good conversations, you'll hear good conversations, and then magic will happen between the conversations. So sounds like a bit of a weird sales pitch there.
No, not at all. And you'll know from our previous conversations, I'm a massive fan of the L word.
Yes.
I think if we just contemplate just the impact that can have, we can soon get past. It's almost like a teenage response to it, isn't it? That you sometimes hear people giggling about, the idea of using the word love. But I just think it's such a strong word. I think your explanation there tells us why it's a strong word, because you attach it to every important relationship in your life, whether that's a person, a community, the planet, the work. We love our work, and so that we are able to express it with that level of gravity almost. And yet we are, there are organizations and people that are reluctant to use that word in any other context other than maybe the romantic one. So thank you for reaffirming that one.
Right. You actually just made me think of something, Simon. I really struggle with the word purpose. And that might be silly, but we've seen a real big wave of purpose over the last decade. Everybody's saying, I'm a purpose-led this, I'm a purpose-led leader, I run a purposeful business. I've always thought all businesses had a purpose, but originally it was the purpose of money. But what actually you made me think as you were talking then, Simon, was actually it's not purpose, it's just love. And that's what I was feeling at 29.
Yeah.
And it wasn't what's my purpose, it's what am I going to do that I love.
Yeah.
And money was not the love. And it's not because I'm rich or have lots of money. I'm not from a big agency background where I've made my money in the 80s or 90s in agency. I left Eden with £2,000. I bought my first laptop. I started creating, and so, yes, you've just made me realize, again, it goes back to that love, each time, actually, those points you said earlier about the dot to dot, it's an act of love each time. My love of my childhood, space and nature, my love, although when I was in Cornwall, it's not that I'm a multi-generational Cornishman, it's the spirit of Cornwall and what it radiates, that anyone can be part of that Cornish spirit, just like anyone could be part of the spirit of B Corp, or the spirit of competition, they say, the spirit of love. So yeah, you've just made me really just connect all the matrix back to that one bit of love. But yes, you are right. I look at love. I can't really say we. I have to just to keep it to I. I looked at it in a very linear way, but actually, again, as I've learned over the last few years, love has many flavors and senses, from how I love nature and the awe for it, to how I love my fiance, to the unconditional love for my children, and the love of good creative that is needed, rather than creativity that's just done for the sake of it, which is what I was doing for those early career points.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Fantastic. So, Matt, we could definitely just carry on chatting for a long time. But before we wrap up the show, we are creating the Change Show playlist. If you haven't heard it, go and check it out on Spotify. But what it is a collection of tracks that my guests I've identified have helped them through the years, whether it's through the high points and the low points, or it's just been a constant collaborator, if you like, on the journey. What would it be for you? What would you like to add to the playlist?
Well, for me, it's a really important song in lots of. I mean, there's so many different songs, from the first vinyl 7-inch I bought to Faithless, who I adore, but it's one song and it relates to the sea and my love of it, surprisingly. And it's by a 90s music producer, Nick Chicane. It's called Chicane. The song's called Offshore, and the music producer is Nick Bracegirdle. And it's ambient. I always think of sunset and easy times. I split up with a girl once, the big love of my life, in my 20s. I went to the sea, and that was sort of in my head. I met my fiance and love of my life, Georgie, because of this song, and I've been to it live. So those mellow beats always bring water and sunshine, so calming parts of nature through musical beats. So, and I recommend anybody that's not heard it or listened to it for a long time to just listen to it. It might not go with the rest if you've got a really upbeat playlist and stuff.
It's a real smorgasbord.
Okay. I'm just thinking I could go getting everybody ready for like bed or like dawn or something.
No, I love your selection. It's going to add an extra depth to what we've got on the playlist.
Yeah, and it kind of rises. And on a Friday, Nick does a podcast. I can't remember how many episodes he's on now, but I listen to it religiously every Friday, 1 hour, and it's from the beat to the dance floor. And I know, however my week's gone, his ambient beats and the other music he plays from other artists and stuff kind of just leave me in a really good space.
Fabulous. Thank you, Matt. Been wonderful to catch up with you. You're welcome back anytime. If you're whatever you're launching, come and tell us. But what I would love you to do is share, how can people get in touch with you? If anything that you've said today resonates with them, what's the quickest route to get to you?
Yeah, quick, because I can talk a lot as well. And sorry, I probably used a lot of your airtime with my sort of meanders through my past. So I'm stepping aside from Leap. It's 21 years, so there's going to be a few things appearing on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn's a good place. On Instagram, which is I'm supposed to regularly do, I haven't so much recently. It's just matt.hocking on Instagram. You'll find me there. The studio's leap.eco, leap.eco. Again, the only domain in the world that you have to pledge to get it. You can't just buy it. You have to pledge to support people and planet, and before you buy it. So we're the first agency in the world to ever own one. Those are probably the main areas, really. Or my website, which is just a single page, because now I'm sort of solo Matt in my new role as Chief Evolution Officer, and that's just matthocking.eco.
Fantastic.
You can see there's a theme going through
there.
digital footprint. So yeah, if anybody would like to hear more chat, riff, I'm an open book. I love a good conversation. I do stay quiet sometimes and just actively listen. So, and I'm just looking at a quote from you. Well, not from you actually, from your latest newsletter, because I'm loving your newsletter, Simon, the Changemaker newsletter. Everything that comes through each week is really on the point. And it's your what happens after everyone says yes, and why agreement doesn't mean action.
Yeah.
Yes, thinking about COP30 and what actually does. And I love the quote: "The single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place," by George Bernard Shaw. So that's really resonating with me this week. So thank you for how you show up each week.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate you. That's wonderful. Thank you very much. That was Matt Hocking, my very special guest here on The Change Show this week. Make sure you subscribe, come back and see us again, and we'll look forward to the next episode with you. Take care.